Many years ago, I was a chef in Lebanon. Now, for those of you who never heard of Lebanon, it is a country just north of Israel. And how I got there isn't part of the story. But when I was there, I was good friends with a guy who was a Christian Arab. So he grew up and lived in Palestine before it was Israel. And it was his dream to go back to his family house, which it wasn't then, but it became the site of a shopping center. And later on he said, I don't care if it's a shopping center, I'm going to go back and see that it's torn down and I'm going to go back to my home. Well, at the time I told him, look, at a certain point in your life, it's time to move on. And one of the topics of today is, when is it time to forget the past and move on? This particular fellow, in my opinion, there's no hope that he's going to go back to his original house. Even if the Palestinians did take over Israel, they're not going to, well, the chance of a shopping center getting knocked down and his old house being rebuilt is zero. So, if you are displaced and something goes wrong in your life and you lose your money or your home or even your family, consider that it may be time to move on and build a new life somewhere else. And this is another funny story and related in a way. When I was in South America, I met some Jewish people, and they had been displaced and kicked out of Spain around the year 1500. And so now we're talking 16, 17, 18, 19. We're talking 400 or 500 years later. And this guy shows me the keys to a house. I can't remember if it was Barcelona or Madrid. I think it was Madrid. And he said he's going to go back to that house someday and reclaim it. And we're talking 7 or 8 generations later. My gosh. Well, at least in this guy's case, his family had moved on, and they were wealthy people in Buenos Aires. But, you know, having impossible dreams to return to a homeland that was lost centuries ago, well, it's not realistic. Okay, so now what is realistic? What should you do in life that's worthwhile? Well, one thing is the pursuit of wealth. Now, it's one thing I never regretted, is making enough money so that when I'm 85, I can have a comfortable retirement. I can afford to have 3 shifts of nurses if I have to. And I have a nice home in Europe and another home in Asia. And depending on the season, I go to one or the other. And so, while some people think that pursuing money and trying to get rich is a bad idea, I think financial independence is probably one of the few things I did in life that wasn't a mistake. Now, what was a mistake? Well, getting married to the wrong woman, that was a huge mistake. And that cost me 7 years of going back and forth to lawyers' rat hole offices and courts and depositions and a lot of money. But eventually, all these things come to an end. So, getting a good partner in life, that's an important thing. And one way to get it is not to rush into a marriage, which is a piece of paper that puts the state in bed with you, but rather to live with your future partner for a few years, and if it works out, great, and if it doesn't, well, move on. In my case, I had to move on. about half a dozen times before I found somebody that I've been with now for 35 years. And that was a good move. Okay, now what are some of the bad moves? Well, there was a famous Spanish painter, I think it was Goya. And Goya had many original ideas and is today remembered for his non-academic paintings. But Goya was obsessed with the idea of being admitted to, I don't know the exact name, but it was like the Academy of Spanish Master Painters. And so he did a lot of paintings that were in the academic style, which today are pretty well forgotten. They're in museums because he's a great name, Goya. But the fact is, in life, pursuing medals and recognition, that and a dollar gets you a ride on a bus, so I don't advise that. And as I just said, moving on and getting a better, making a better life for yourself if you ever are displaced or seriously in trouble. One very popular topic is how I got to be 85 or 90 or 105. In other words, how I managed to live so long. And in my case, as you know from the title of this video, I'm 85. But how I got to live this long? Well, honestly, I think it's genealogy. My mother lived to be exactly 100 years old, and her parents were all long livers. And on my father's side, they lived a long time. So I may, with good luck, make it to around 100. But I had a friend named Harry, and he said, oh, the secret of long life is a lot of vitamins. And I remember he would take about a dozen vitamins at breakfast, and a dozen vitamins at lunch, and another dozen at dinner. So he was taking like 30 pills a day, and he said that would keep him alive to age 125. And he invited me to his 125th birthday anniversary. Well, good old Harry didn't have long living parents, but he did make it to 100. So that's, maybe vitamins do you some good. I used to think that if you ate the right food, you didn't need vitamins. But now, well, I'm not going as crazy as he is with 30 a day, but I am doing about 12 to 15 a day. B12, A, B, C. I don't even, I'll let my kid worry about the vitamins I should take. And my lovely wife, she picks them out too. But I do take a lot of vitamins. And heck, one of them turned out to be very good for me. It was called Chondrosulf. I had a bad knee. I couldn't even walk a bit. I couldn't get in and out of a car. But after I got a shot of, what is that stuff in the knee?
Hyaluronic acid?
Hyaluronic acid. I was able to walk, and then the follow-up was these Chondrosulf pills. And hey, that was about 5 years ago, and I can walk reasonably well. So, okay, so today I'm a believer in vitamins, a little bit of exercise. I try to walk an hour a day, and probably the most important is the avoidance of stress. If you can avoid stress, you don't get sick. And the people I know who had a lot of stress, like people on Wall Street, they all died early. So that is the topic of how to live a long life. And that's about all I have to say on that. And now for my slightly bang-up finish. Okay, if you avoid making enemies, that's one of the most important things in life, because it's the enemies that you make that can really ruin your life. So if it's an ex-wife, a neighbor, somebody who insults you, try to be friendly with them. There's a story about my hero Benjamin Franklin, who for some reason had a person in his community who always badmouthed him and said he was a bad fellow. And Benjamin Franklin kept thinking about how can I make this guy a friend. Well, it turned out that the enemy was a book collector. And so Benjamin Franklin learned of a certain book, let's call it the ABC book. And he went to his friend and very politely said, you know, I've always admired you. Flattery gets you everywhere. He said, I've always admired you, and I heard you own the ABC book, and I would so much love to be able to read it. Maybe I could read it at your library. And the guy was so impressed that Benjamin Franklin, who was a slightly important fellow in his community, that Benjamin Franklin admired him and wanted to borrow one of his books. And so he said, here, Ben, here is my ABC book. At which point they were friends for a long time. And so the moral of this story, if there is a moral, is you or I can make lots of money and have lots of good times with friends, but we won't make any money and we won't make any good times with enemies. So try to make your people who don't like you your friend one way or another. Figure out how to do it, and life will be a lot better. If it's an ex-wife, put a smile on her face, whatever it takes. I mean, to get rid of my last wife, I said, what is it you want, honey? She said, I want you dead. I said, okay. And I pretended to shoot myself. She said, now I'm dead. What do you want next? Well, at that point, she had a little bit of a laugh, and I can't say we ever became friends, but at least we weren't enemies after that. And that's the bang-up finish for today. See you tomorrow.